Now that the silicon's fully set, I can start cutting these parts out of their molds. But I'm using these molds a little bit differently because I want to put a wire support inside the silicon rather than putting the two halves of the mold back together again and then pouring in a liquid. I'm going to be using each half of the mold separately to cast each part. Then I'll lay down the wire support and then sandwich it between the two of them with some more silicon to join it all up. You may notice that I've only made up 4 of the 8 legs that are needed. That's because at this stage, based on the reference pictures I've found, I'm not entirely convinced that they're quite thick enough as opposed to the true 1-to-1 scale references that I've been able to find. I'm using the same silicon with some tint added, so I need to make sure that the mold section's got a good coat of the detergent so that it acts as a separating agent between the two, and then it's just a matter of smearing in the silicon to try and pick up all those details. This is just the base colour that I'm using, but I'll be mixing up a number of different colours when it comes to the final finishing of it as well. This is me separating the parts out of the mould the next morning. Most of the parts came out of the mould fairly well, but the mould of the top section of the body had the most deep cut details, and I probably should have used a little bit more detergent on that particular part of the mould because it did get stuck a little. I was still able to get it out though, and it'll still make for a perfectly usable piece. It's time to start laying in the wire skeleton. What I'm using for this is a plastic coated wire coat hanger. I'm using the plastic coated stuff because the silicone I'm using is slightly acidic, and over an extended period of time it's likely to rust the metal. Could have used stainless steel wire or even aluminium armature wire, but this stuff seems to have the perfect sort of bend strength that I'm after, and I'm pretty sure it'll work fairly well with what I'm trying to do here. Just using some pins to temporarily hold it into place. And then once again the same silicone goes down over the top of it. So whilst that's setting, I've decided to work on the legs. As I said, I wasn't terribly happy with the legs that came with the kit. It just feels like they're just that little bit too skinny. So I've decided that I'm going to sculpt them up from scratch. I'm still going to use the legs as reference for the details that are in them, and the overall length of them seems to be fine. So once again, I'm using the coat hanger wire to get the basis for the skeleton, and the little bend that I'm putting in there just allows me to maintain the proper length of it as I start to sculpt these up. As I said, the original legs I think are a little bit too thin, but these ones I am sculpting up slightly larger than I need to be, so I can use a Stanley knife to cut in the details of the skin folds and the bits around the knuckles and that sort of thing. I'm also going to be using some fake fingernails on the ends of the fingers to add into the detail of them as well. Whilst I've been sculpting up the legs, that's given enough time for the first half of the tail to cure. Now I can go back to it and reintroduce the other half of it and sandwich that wire into place. You can see here with the moulds where a couple of the pieces have got stuck on the inside. All in all though, it worked fairly well, and because I want to heighten up the detail of the final piece anyway, any of these little missing pieces should be easily fixed. And there's enough life left in these moulds that I could reuse it again and make up another one if I wanted to. Other than the loop of metal you saw me place in there earlier, I'm not going to be using any skeletal support inside the body. The silicone itself has got enough strength to support the shape of the body, and I do like the idea of it being a little bit floppy anyway. Once again, I'm just reintroducing both halves of the moulded pieces together. I'm using pins that are pushed through the silicone to hold them in place whilst the silicone sets. It's just a matter of doing the same thing to the other side, and that'll finish off the tail and body structure. If you're enjoying these videos, don't forget to click that like button, that helps me out a lot. And if you haven't already, you might also like to subscribe. I'm trying to come up with new ideas and projects all the time, so if you'd like to help me out further, you might consider checking out my Patreon page. So I've got to the stage now, I've got to set stuff aside and pretty much let it dry. So that'll be the update for this time, guys. Thanks for watching. Talk to you next time.